So I wrote a story about a world where humans lived for 1,000 years. Now I'd like to hear from you. What do you think would happen? First, some quick notes. In the story, I assumed one child per couple, which kept population numbers relatively low. Also, I assumed that everyone had access to the technology to extend their life, regardless of wealth. Now, in reality, I think the first thing that would happen is that the super rich would use whatever means necessary to ensure that only they have access to this technology. They would hide it from the rest of the population and pretend that they were dying so that nobody would suspect anything. I think we would see extreme measures taken to enforce this secrecy. People in the lower classes would probably die of envy. Okay, on to the timeline. In year 1, humanity discovers how to stop aging. From this point on, children are born and people die, but only from things like accidents and war. No more old age. Within a century, the world's population doubles. Politicians argue over immigration policy and resource distribution. People debate whether to have children. Everyone's wondering how many billions of people the Earth can handle. By year 100, things are getting cramped. Skyscrapers are now the norm in big cities, and the majority of the population lives in megastructures. Some nations implement strict population controls. Others become havens for immigrants, leading to large tensions between countries. Year 100 is the last century where traditional wars occur. Resource scarcity leads to increasingly harsh policies and violent conflicts between nations. After this point, any further wars are fought in space. By year 200, the lift extension technology has been patented by a corporation, and only the wealthy can afford it. Poverty is still present, but there are fewer slums because nations have been forced to house their citizens within giant arcologies. There are still diplomatic missions on other planets, but mostly these are symbolic, as there are too many people on Earth to justify mass space. Year 300, private colonies exist on Mars, Venus, and the Moon. There is talk of expanding to asteroids and other systems, but most of this is propaganda used by governments to distract people from life on a crowded Earth. Space travel is restricted to the ultra-rich. Immortals often suffer from identity crises. When you live for centuries, how do you keep track of everything that happens? The average lifespan of human memories is only 25 years. After that, people tend to forget entire decades of their life. The more you live, the less real each century seems, like a half-remembered dream. The human mind is not equipped to deal with thousands of years of memories. There is simply too much data to process. Some people try to deal with this problem by regularly pruning their memories. This is done through either meditation or surgery. Either way, though, you always lose part of yourself. Year 400. Now the gap between the haves and have-nots. The richest can afford to regularly prune their memories and rewrite their identities every few decades. Most people cannot and are stuck reliving their old mistakes. Year 500. The wealthiest have begun selling their extra lifespans to corporations. CEOs can literally buy more time to expand their business empire. The smartest scientists have discovered the secret to repairing DNA. While everyone else ages, these geneticists remain frozen at the peak of their youth. They watch the world turn over multiple times and witness the rise of political dynasties. By this point, there are simply too many people on Earth to allow free elections. Those who gained power centuries ago refuse to step down, and most revolutions fail. Since people have stopped dying from old age, many become disillusioned with life and simply stop trying. It's hard to put up a fight against the system when you know that you will still be alive to fight another day. Any hope for the future evaporates when you realize that you will never reach the end of your own story. By year 700, population numbers have stabilized. About 10% of the world's population has extended their life, and the rest have slowly died off. Humanity has spread throughout the solar system, but rarely leaves the orbit of Earth. Generations of diplomats have kept the peace between colonies, but the majority of people have given up on exploring the galaxy. Many of the life extension technologies from year 100 have been forgotten. New tech has been developed, though that keeps our bodies renewed every few decades. At this point, The appearance of being 25 years old is considered healthy. Healthy-looking 25-year-olds roam the earth, while elderly people are those who have not chosen to renew their body. These are usually outcasts of society who have rejected the latest medical procedures, but that doesn't mean they have more wisdom. After all, how much can you learn when you live in the same century for hundreds of years? Year 700 is when things get strange. As time passes, the concept of time itself begins to break down. 100 years means nothing. A second can be longer or shorter than a decade. The immortals have lost touch with their humanity. Marriage lasts only a few decades, and no one stays in the same relationship for more than a century. As a result, people have 5 or 6 sets of friends, lovers, parents, siblings, and children, none of which they maintain relationships with for more than a few centuries. And after 700 years, things get weird. People's sense of self begins to completely collapse. Without death, time has no meaning. Your life is a repeating loop of joy and sorrow that never ends. Even the most powerful leaders eventually grow weary. Some deny reality and choose to remain in suspended animation. Others decide to push the boundaries of science and transfer their consciousness into a new body. This process works. A person can upload their brain patterns into a clone body, but the process requires a donor. So the immortal leader must find someone willing to sacrifice their life. Some say that this is the fate of all immortals, that sooner or later, they will all have to kill someone. Of course, others disagree, saying that once you have lived for several hundred years, you simply lose interest in killing anyone. So the only constant among immortals is their ability to adapt. After 1,000 years, the world is a vastly different place. Humans have expanded across the solar system. The Earth is practically a museum with a few hardy settlers refusing to leave. Long gone are the days of exploration. Most people are happy just to stay in one place for a few centuries. Each star system has its own government and culture. Interstellar travel is extremely rare. There is talk of distant galaxies and uncharted systems. But this is all propaganda used by politicians to distract people from life within their own solar system. The average life extension of humans varies between systems. On some worlds, people live for thousands of years. On others, the maximum lifespan is still 100 or 200. Still, each system holds a few individuals who have somehow lived for centuries. In total, there are millions of humans scattered across the galaxy who claim to be 1,000 years old. With no records from so long ago, it's impossible to prove or disprove their claims. But here's my ultimate prediction. After 1,000 years, we would have discovered that the universe itself is immortal. If time began with the Big Bang, then time will end with the heat death of the universe. But there is also evidence that our universe is actually infinite. And if that is the case, then time may go on forever! Now imagine that we are actually living in the heat death of an infinite universe. All that is left is a handful of star systems that still function. Scattered among these worlds are the remnants of civilizations that lived during the universe's prime. They cling to life with advanced technology, but their number is dwindling. Every year, another immortal dies. It becomes harder and harder to find donors for clones. More and more records are lost, both physical and mental. Memory is the most fragile aspect of the human body, and it is the first to go after thousands of years. Eventually, a new generation arises that no longer remembers what happened during the universe's prime. They listen to old legends, but don't really believe them. They have their own stories and their own heroes. Once again, humanity has entered a golden age. For now, they are the center of the universe. But they don't realize that one day they too will die out, leaving only ruins behind. So what do you think? Does this scenario sound fun? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.